Recording. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you got a cold.
Yeah, I was just in the middle of a cough and I'm like still catching my breath.
Yeah, your
That's
nose is stuffed
downstairs.
up.
Yeah. What up?
Where and
Welcome to the
so
Flawedcast.
yeah, welcome to the Flawedcast.
Glad
Our
to be
recording
here.
is occurring. Yeah. Uh, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Jasper, also known as Louis Jasper. I am LA resident. Um, you know, just living here, being
Nice.
happy.
Are you from LA?
No, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
Moved here from Texas, so I've
Okay.
been a Southern boy all my life until I got here.
Nice. And how long in LA?
This will be, I think I'm in the I think 6.5 years.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
And you like
Yeah,
it
I
enough
like
that
that.
you're staying there now, obviously. No thoughts of going
Yeah.
home going.
I'm here until I'm not.
I
That's the
hear
way
it.
I see it. Nothing making me run away, but nothing keeping me here for too long. So I'm just kind of filling it out, seeing what happens.
Cool.
What about you?
I'm in Seattle, transmitting from Seattle, um, as usual. I think there have been a few opportunities we've transmitted from other places, but usually I'm here.
They were
Um,
lost in the last one was lost in the ether from Amsterdam.
from Amsterdam, yeah.
We recorded the most brilliant, deep conversation about consciousness and what is the meaning of a higher consciousness and the value of it. And then we realized, like an hour in, that the phone just stopped recording. And we didn't get any of it; just lost all of it.
Oh, that sucks. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, the brilliance always works like that.
It was
Um,
genius.
yeah, and I'd like to share that compliment amongst us. Just rub those compliments around. We're
Right.
gonna have some good stuff tonight, I'm sure, no doubt. I'm excited to get into it. Do we want to
Oh
do
yeah, me
like
too.
some biographical introductions? Like, how do you guys know each other? What's your connection?
Oh,
Uh,
so Jasper and I have known each other for how many years now?
I don't know. It's got to be like 7 or 8.
So yeah, it's been several years. Um, yeah, and like when Jasper moved from LA, or from Fort
Texas.
Worth to LA, it was right before I moved from LA to New York. I had been trying to get them to move out to
Yeah.
LA
Okay.
the whole time I was in LA, and they
Finally
moved,
did.
and I was like, "Hey guys, welcome to LA. I'm leaving. Bye."
Like 2 weeks later.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
funny how that works. Well,
Um,
you
But
lure
yeah,
him
it's
in.
good.
Looks
Good
like
times. Yeah, lured us here and then deuced out.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
deuces out. You guys enjoy yourself. Love it. Looks like Meshach's on a little bit of a deuce out right now too. Technology deuce.
yeah, I think I caught back up with you.
As in the other deuces, the visiting
Yeah.
bathroom
Deuces.
deuces.
I'm learning from our Skype history. Like we're only a few episodes into this whole recording the Skype thing, but what I'm learning is that when it starts to freeze for me, just stop moving or talking.
Just like be really still.
Just wait for it to catch up,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you're not going to help anything.
No, that's a good
Just
You
like
know
point.
what I mean?
We're not going to
Yeah.
catch any
If
of it.
I
no.
start seeing it freeze, like I'm not going to keep going. Um. So yeah, I'm
So,
in LA too at the moment, but heading to Seattle soon.
indeed, holiday adventures. We've got big plans. Tickets are bought for your Friday luncheon with the Norwegians.
Ooh,
Nice. I
nice.
can't
I hope they're
wait.
kind.
Okay, this is a perfect
Is
opportunity
there
to
lots of
explain what
fish?
that is for Jasper.
No fish.
What
I
we're
feel
talking
like
about.
yeah, it's an annual Christmas table for the Norwegian American Chamber of Commerce in Seattle.
Okay.
And so there's like 150 people or something at this country club, and most of them are Norwegians or married to a Norwegian or whatnot. And they do there's like Christmas caroling. There's a lot of jokes. There's like an MC who does a lot of like dad dad worthy jokes. They're pretty much all dad jokes. Old
But
man and dad jokes.
But none of these things are specifically Norwegian traditions. It's just a lot of Norwegians are just doing these things together.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
sweet.
And then you eat a Norwegian Christmas meal, kind of like not a big feast meal, but like a small plated version of what you'd
So
usually
what cuisine would be a Norwegian Christmas?
Super pork heavy. And like
pork heavy. Okay.
Pork heavy is. There are variants of which part of the country you're from that indicates if you're going to eat more lamb, or some people even eat lutefisk for dinner, which is a preserved cod. It's like a dried cod that's then soaked in lye.
He used to be my favorite rapper.
Oh yeah, lutefisk. He had his days. I'd say by the fourth album, he was turning down though. I like that.
Oh,
yeah. For me at least. But yeah, so you come from different parts of the country. You eat either like the salty lamb thing, this preserved fish thing, or fortunately, my family is from the part of the country that eats pork for Christmas, and that's a much preferable option when compared to the other two. So it's like usually a pork belly with the skin on. Then you give it a diamond hatching and bake it with the skin up, so that turns into this like bacony, fatty, chewy substance. And then you just cut out, like steak bits of that, like 2.5, 3 inches thick and like 3 inches tall.
Sounds delish.
And then you've got lingonberries, brown gravy, some mashed potatoes.
Don't just breeze past the lingonberries, dog.
Sauerkraut.
Lingonberries
are the truth.
Like the Norwegian cranberry, but it's different.
I'm a lingonberry guy.
So much better than cranberry.
I am a fan. I think the lingonberry is way better.
Okay.
Way better.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh man, that's a superior fruit.
Thanks, IKEA.
Oh, please don't say that four-letter word anymore. Yeah. We can mention them once, but now on you can get
they're not a sponsor.
Scandinavian specialties whenever you'd like.
Gotcha.
It's a good time to mention our sponsor, ScanSelect.com.
Scanspecialties.com is the
ScanSpecialties, sorry.
Entrance exit. Thank you, though. It'll defer there, but
I gotta like
fighter.
One of the things I'm looking forward to in my trip up, by the way, is that I get to pick out my Christmas goodies from the store in person.
Oh yeah.
Because I get
is that how you do it?
I get the Norwegian goat cheese. I get the lingonberry jam. Oh man!
Well, yeah. I mean, he knows that I'm not gonna like make him pay for something.
Oh, you're like treat your food goodies. I thought you meant like you're a stocking stuffers and like Christmas goodies means.
Oh, I'm not giving any of this away.
Mrs. Claus, or it means like
eating all of this. I'm eating all of this.
Gotcha.
I know you get some chocolate too.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Those chocolates. He's got a crazy. So I think that store is like a weird wonderland of like snacks and treats and bizarre like troll figurines and like.
Here's the thing: I've never heard you talk like this about treats, so it must be.
Marvelous.
They are choice. No, they're it's a choice selection. It's legit. I'm a fan.
They're specialties. They're selected.
Okay.
They're curated by yours truly.
That's the name.
These aren't your local CVS bag treats.
No.
No.
This isn't a bag of Hershey's.
These are hand selected by the man in the alpaca sweater.
Good will come up.
It's good. Wait, will there be a guy in an alpaca sweater?
No, I'm the guy in the alpaca sweater right now, currently.
I see.
Little limber herbivores of the alpine.
Limber. Are they that limber? Yeah, I guess.
They prance all around, super like nimbly bimbly, like through the like tundra-like grasses. Oh, yeah. There's hella flamingos up there too. Damn, somebody's in a loud place.
I don't know what just happened. Sorry, guys. Is that better?
Check's volume went out of control. No, that's not.
Oh, it's not mine.
Is it any better now?
No.
Nothing?
You got louder, but the background noise got crazy intense.
What about now?
You're just a little muted.
Weirdness. Okay, sorry.
That's better.
Yeah,
okay, it's
awesome.
adjusting. Sorry, my microphone got temporarily disconnected. I don't think the audience is gonna notice it because it was recording on my side. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Potentially, yeah. That's. Anyways,
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll find
Write
out.
us, audience. Tell us, Flawedcast Nation, in our endless Flawedcast forum, what happened for you.
I've never been on a video podcast. You guys should tell me like where to point. I always like it when they point at stuff and they're like, subscribe.
Subscribe. You're doing it perfectly. I like that. Yes, we'll fill in the blank. I think that's the way to go right there. We got that.
Good. So we got that.
Well, your only obligation is at least once to reference a fake sponsor and call out the amount of money they've paid us. The general term is that.
Got it.
We've graduated. Our very first sponsor, I think, was business shirts.
We had sponsors prior to business shirts.
Business shirts, I think, is my all-time favorite.
They were good.
Sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, they came back multiple times. They just kept coming back and sponsoring us, and they were to the tune of $10K each, $30,000 per episode. They were chiming in.
Huge, real money.
Yeah, real money, and we got some serious play out of them. MeUndies couldn't keep up with that kind of offer, so we went straight to like big things like Wi-Fi, and what's your favorite, Bjorn?
I think just the
sponsor?
military-industrial complex. We had that as a sponsor once. That was strong. There was a lot of money on that show. That was a great play.
They had a lot to say too. It
There's
felt like a lot of restrictions.
There's another real hallmark, especially I think when the few times that we've had the fortune of having other people besides the usual three of us, Rob, Meshach, and myself.
Oh, other people, I get it.
Bobby.
Yeah.
Now that it's a video podcast, that's a funnier joke.
Right? Yeah. Well played.
Yeah, that would have went over some heads, especially with the air quotes.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So we've grappled with like some big ideas sometimes on the show, and we've had these kind of recurrent themes. Mm-hmm. Some of the recurrent themes have been like paranormal. Is the paranormal real? Can you give any weight to metaphysical experience or the recollection of metaphysical experience? Mm-hmm. That's one like lane of thought that we've spent some time on. We've also spent a lot of time on creating formulas for like potential future world governments or even governments of literally local regions.
I would bet every other episode we imagine a new.
We talk about system, or even a government for the United States or for a state or a municipality. And then we've also tested the what if there was some apocalypse that left you and 99 other people alive in one little location on a now somehow survivable world. What form of community would you create? And what like laws, if there were any? You have the choice to create them. It's all your sole power to begin with. What would you choose? So we've run with like those are a few big themes I think that we've jumped back and forth on. Do any of those like stick out as something you'd be interested in talking about?
Me personally, I'm like, they all sound interesting, and I'm so indecisive that I'd rather just go along with what you guys are already vibing with. I have opinions galore, so I'm sure I'll have something to say about everything.
I do want to know where Jasper falls on a couple of these that have been divisive lines for the three of us.
Ooh, give it to me.
And maybe we can like identify some allies and alliances here. Some where the Flawedcast Nation has some lines to draw. So, for example, I think the three of us have finally come around. Although listening to our last episode, I'm starting to question this, to be honest. But until our last episode, I would have said that the three of us have come around over the damn near 100 episodes that we've made of this fucking thing. um, that the parties have to go. The political parties have to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Until the last episode, I thought we were pretty decided on that. And in the last episode, I was listening back to it before this episode,
Yeah.
and I gotta say, it kind of sounded like all three of us were Democrats again.
Well, because we're hoping for anything but Trump, I'd say. But
Man,
and we
that
and we're
sucks. I don't want to be a never Trumper. I just want to I want to be these parties suck because they suck. Both of them suck.
They do. There's a couple like brief forms of hope, I think, that come about. Like, you get like some of what Bernie says is like can be hopeful and inspiring, and you're like, gosh, if he really did have a chance,
Sure.
what would this new America under his policies look like? Corey looks great sometimes. I like, there's some Yang has some things that he said that are like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I love that.
I'm on the Yang gang. I'm on the Yang train. I'm all the way.
Are you?
I'm in on it. I want Yang and Bernie though because they both want to spend all the money. Just take all of the money and give it to the people. Just take all of it. Just whatever's extra, just put it out there.
What are you feeling, Jasper? On the candidates or who would you want for 20?
I honestly am completely unaware at the moment. Okay. I've been in and out of it. I know it's shitty. And I know it's no excuse, but Mishak understands. I've just been going through some BS, and I have been so out of touch with the political atmosphere right now and what's going on. Which is a problem because my opinion on the whole Democrat Republican thing about it being like shitty and not wanting it is, I feel like we can't really have that until we start dealing with like how our like electoral college and like all this shit that's partitioned off. Because I think the problem is if we take away the two parties, then that's gonna give average everyday Americans too much. Like then everyone running is gonna have a voice, and everyone
we have a system.
To, like,
we have to replace it with
system.
Something. We have a proposal for how that.
Okay. So this is already discussed. This is already.
We discussed it with many proposals.
We have lots of different proposals.
Okay.
I don't know what one Mishak's going to suggest right now.
No, all I'm saying is like that we always replace the system of the two parties with some proposal of how the two parties can be logically eliminated.
Well, the thing is, you can't. The two-party system might not need to be replaced if we start doing things differently from the bottom and go up. Then it might build up to something to where it will just eliminate the party system instead of replacing it with something else. If we deal with the electoral college, deal with the way that our communities are partitioned off and how we count votes per state, then that might add to us being more effective in our Congress, more effective in our local senates, like more effective in our local government, to where that would build and possibly in this, this world to where the two-party system kind of just like fades away because every candidate has like speaking points and driving points that aren't Democratic or Republican. They're just human, and they carried them, up from wherever they came
voting.
From.
I think ranked cast voting is the system he wants here.
What is it?
Ranked cast voting. We talked about
cast
this.
Voting.
Yeah, so, that's a possibility too. But like, look, I get like, would you suggest that doing that, moving from the ground up, is best done with like grassroots candidates, who then like run in the Democratic like field, take the Democratic mantle, and like maybe represent a more like socialist view, or even in certain parts of the country might want a libertarian view, but like takes the Democratic mantle as their choice set. Is that the way? Is that the suggestion? Like what form, or is it like getting people to like turn out massively for votes and really shut down certain politicians? Like what is
Well, I feel like if you start from like local government and local politicians, then local politicians aren't necessarily running on Democratic or Republican values. They're running on community-based issues. They're running on like, oh, like this park has been here for 1,000 fucking years and we need to get rid of it. And I'm the candidate that can do that, or I'm the person that can do this job and I can do it effectively. And there's a thousand things
I'm
wrong.
for that ticket. Get rid of all the
You know,
parks.
there's
Yeah,
there's a
that's an old ass one.
there's a thousand things wrong, but like in my city, this is the thing that's bothering my city and my people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so like starting from that and like making that local government about that, and then those values will be transitioned over um, into like those politicians' views of how they would represent their state. That will go into how they view how we're, instead of picking on, oh, our local government values this, blah blah blah. It's more about community issues, community values, and
I
how
like
that
it.
can be built
Uh,
up. But
oh,
that's ideal. But how do you build that up into a nationwide
well, here's
ideal
I
thing?
just I had a
We're all
little
like, I can hear Rob jumping at the bit, and he's not even
yeah.
on this call.
I had a little
Like all
a
three of
little
us are like, I have
a,
an idea.
a thought that comes in with a few of the ideas that we've discussed prior. That would be having sort of like a jury duty appointment fixed to the federal titles, the federal senatorial representative titles. Perhaps the executive and the agencies that fit within the executive would still be a federally voted on choice
Mm-hmm.
set, but maybe you could have a little bit of a jury duty for voting on certain other items,
Mm-hmm.
and the jury pool, get it, here comes the drum roll, could
Mm-hmm.
be locally elected officials around the country. So you've
Yeah.
proved your merit in your community, and now there's a jury call out that says we need you to come to Washington D.C. and serve a month and a half run in Congress and vote on these 10 issues. Come up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What up?
I like
Now
that.
we're
Crazy.
talking.
And then if you did that, then when these elected officials in their local government, when they call like city council meetings or they call their local meetings, right before they're called to their so-called jury duty, then that makes them an even more effective voice to speak for the people, because they literally just had a city council meeting and talked about these 10 issues. How do you want me as your elected official to speak for our community? And
Love it.
then they
Love it.
go based off of that. And that's literally all their vote is what does their community say about these issues and how it'll affect us? And then what that does is that gives the local representative the ability to say, okay, so just so you guys know, we've been really, really working. You elected me to get this park project done. Okay, so that was my main goal when I was running. And so that was my first priority. Now, there's this new law that they're taking me to vote on, which would give you this, but it would take away all the funding that I ran on. What do you want me to do with that?
Yeah.
How do you want me to vote on that? Like, because I don't want to go and make a decision based off of my running, and then it wasn't what you guys wanted. Nor do I want to just default and then you think that I was an untrustworthy candidate. It gives more opportunity for all of the openness and the speaking if our local representatives had more
I like that.
authority to speak and act in the
Well,
big government.
and what about you give a check on that by saying, regardless of when your voting cycle is in your community for whatever office you hold,
Mm-hmm.
upon returning from any federal selection, you will have a snap vote, an election for your position again, just to see if you met your community's demands. Because if you
Ooh,
didn't, they can vote you out right after you come home.
yeah. Yeah.
With
I mean,
ranked cast voting.
I think that's voting.
Yeah, it just like the
You can
runoff
scale that
likelihood.
to each level. You can scale ranked cast voting. We should explain it for Jasper, but like
Yeah,
you
I'm
can
trying to
scale
get
ranked
back to
cast
the reason.
voting. No. I'll explain it. There's a proposal that we're referring to
Okay.
that from Harvard that is
Okay.
based on this term. But I think you can scale this to the local level and then each level up based on voting regions.
Yeah.
Like, if you just think of it in those terms while I describe it, I think it could still work in the model you guys just described, and you use ranked cast voting to cast all the votes for placing those positions along.
Okay.
Right?
Tell me about it. What is it?
But ranked cast voting on the national scale goes like this. You have a national primary in which candidates at large are...
all 14,000 of them.
Yeah, however many, right? There's 27 Republicans and 98 Democrats and 14 independents, and also Trump.
22 people from the Vampire Party.
There's exactly
a
the
lot
teddy
of
bear and a lava glass, whatever.
Linda LaRouche.
Everyone's running for president, right? And all across America, everyone casts a vote for their top 3 candidates. Okay, so all the votes are calculated, and we try to identify if, first, the thing you're always going for, has any one candidate won more than 50% of the vote. If not, then you go through these rules, right? And the rules are who got the highest percentage out of the winners, right? And you kind of stack them. And what you're stacking first is everyone's first choice, right? But since you have to vote for 3 candidates in order, if no one's first choice gets 50%, then the bottom vote or a candidate, all of the people who voted for him, their second choice is now calculated, and those votes are retallied. They're refactored in. And you keep going until you're left with one candidate who either has 50% of the vote or he's everyone's second or third choice at least, right? He's a large enough group of people's rough estimate that everybody's pretty happy with that person. That's the goal of it, right? Like, so you whittle it down by that rule of and at every level, has the top candidate reached 50% of the vote? If not, recalculate the bottom candidate's votes and use the next vote on those.
The trick is,
so that's ranked cast voting.
The trick is this system doesn't do away with the divisiveness of party at all. Like, you're going to have
doesn't.
But check it out. Check out how the math works, right? Look, if you have a candidate like Trump, who's going to get 37 to 42% of that vote, then he's very potentially the highest singular vote earner in that national election over several people from the Democratic field.
Which vote do you think he's going to get? You think he's going to get 42% of the number 1 vote?
But he's going to get the 1 vote. This is what I'm saying.
I don't think he's going to get 42 of the 1 vote. I think he'll get 42 of the 2 vote. But I think the 1 vote in his base is split like 9 ways right now. I think the Republican base can pick all kinds of people they would rather have than Trump.
That's another value step. I'm talking about how, like, the math would work. You'd have somebody who was the clear number 1 for a larger percentage of people than others in the country, who then was immediately not on. So it forces people to play the middle. And while I appreciate centrist politicians in some ways, I'm far more interested in having really grassroots-minded, politically revolutionary, progressive people be elected to federal office. And that being my goal, I don't want people to keep playing to the centrist corporatist shit.
You're saying that the campaign calculus of the candidate would
be to be the number 2 for everybody.
To always be the number 2.
Always be everybody's number 2, and let the divisive Trump or Bernie be representative of people who get 28% of the massive.
Okay, it's boring and it's not sexy, but let's be honest. we're not talking about what's exciting and fun. We're talking about running a country, and what we're like. If we're talking about the math statistically and and the probability of ending up in the right place, don't we want a system that is largely kind of predictable and boring, and it kind of does aim for the
What?
middle? You know,
What if
like,
we go like
isn't that what we
all?
want
What if we go all
at this
kinds of
stage?
crazy and just like did it all the way from the beginning, like pageantry? Just like have, if you want to be the president of the United States, then you got to win your state over first. And like your home state, the where you grew up, where that shares your like core values or whatever, you you have to like, and it's not Republican Democrat. It's like I as a Californian resident wants to run for president as a California representative.
Yeah.
And then so you start your preliminaries off with state president, you know, and then you get your state president, and then you start everything off with 50 presidents, 50 people running to be the president of the United States. And then throughout the pageant, you can get them, instead of like random questions, like make them play a war game live on TV instead of a debate. Just show me an hour of these guys giving me their opinion on how many people, like if something happened in this war
I
game,
love
you make
this.
a decision.
Why has this not
How would
come up
you do this?
before?
And then, you know, instead of a swimsuit competition, like, you know, if you know, talk about, do etiquette, like national etiquette. How would you talk to Putin if he was standing right in front of you? Do like some real fucking shit to show people
Yeah,
how
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
could act and be. I'm sorry about the language.
Oh no, don't worry about the language.
And then based on that, let people vote, you know, and do like your stage 1, your stage 2, your stage 3, and let these people actually win over America based on their merits and based on their opinions, based on their split second decisions that they've made under the pressure right then of like this, you know, there's 50 of us and it's going to come down to one, you know, and that person is the president.
If we chose a president from
States more,
television.
that gives states more reasons to invest, because then they can be Alaskan president, the guy from Alaska won. You know, it would make local governments way more exciting to be involved in, because like my person could be president next year, you know?
It completely negates the electoral college and any kind of system that's weighted based on population or all that kind of stuff, because none of that matters, because all of that is based on migration growth. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you have to go back to your home state to ever be president, you have to win over that state to ever be president, then the strategy changes. It's a generational strategy now. It's not a migration strategy.
Which is how it should be anyway.
I love it. I love the pageantry of what you described there. Like, first of all, I love that you went this place with this abstract idea and are like, I love those ideas.
It should. It's great.
Fun. It's fun. So we elected a television president, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, this country wants that. We want somebody who runs the pageant gauntlet and who is in front of our faces, and we know intimately in this sort of celebrity-like way.
He owns the Miss America pageant.
I know. He is the president to end all presidents. From now on, it's just pageant winners.
Yeah. Pretty much.
We saw the flaw,
That's
and
beautiful.
instead of trying to correct it, we were just like, fuck it. Let's just jump all the
It's over now.
Yeah. Let's do this.
Let's do that and make it
I just want to point out, I mean, like, we talked about this, like, the very first episode of the Flawedcast was us predicting whether Donald Trump could possibly win the nomination and Hillary Clinton would be a landslide against him.
The certainty was real.
It was so real.
People hate women. People hate women.
We were so on Hillary, like, in that race, we were so on Hillary's side as long as she didn't fuck over Bernie. But, like, that was kind of the general arc. But that we were so certain that Donald Trump is not going to win this election.
No way. I was saying,
This is going to be This is going to be embarrassment to politics. And now I don't see a way that he loses re-election.
No.
Oh my
right?
God! No.
At this
There's
point,
no way.
I don't see a path to him losing re-election. That's how far
There's
we've
no
come.
way.
I just want to point. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off the rabbit
He's
trail,
got
but
to
like
be. He can't.
that was the full circle of where we were. But like,
Yeah.
sorry, what were you saying that I interrupted with that?
Who? Me?
You. Sorry, Bjorn. I was
Man. There's the right
I
point.
went on a whole rabbit trail with that. Sorry.
Honestly, who knows? Tangents are what we love. We celebrate tangents here. It's part of
But
the
I
flaw.
like-
It's like,
I do think we've circled around the idea of we have to get all the money and the power and all that stuff decentralized. We have to get it back to the states, back to local government, back to people. We've circled around the idea of the jury as a metaphor, jury duty as a metaphor.
I don't know.
Like everyone being responsible to kind of eventually be called upon to be a part of the system in a more advanced way. You know?
Yeah.
And we've circled around like much more limited terms and term limits. And campaign finance limits to just restrict the appeal of politics as a corporate ladder. You know, as a game that you can play to advance your
campaign finance reform.
Wouldn't it be
whatever.
Wouldn't it be awesome if the this is still ideal if everyone that lost if the presidential pageant went and then they crowned a president, everyone that lost became his committee for the next term. So not only does he have to beat them out and win America's votes, he or she, but she also has to be able to keep a good standing with fellow competitors in order to get good counsel. And they have to keep investing in that government. They're running for president, but if they lose, they automatically become presidential counsel.
Yeah. The one
Not counsel.
But what
but
happens
the
before?
jury,
I
jury,
love that
not the
idea. Except that what happens in like a emergency conflict when everyone just wants the president to go down so they're next in line, kind of thing.
Oh no. No, well, not in that, not like council, not like not the emergency council like that. That's where I misspoke. That's why I backed up and went back to your jury thing, because I didn't mean like the council, overall council.
Yeah, no, I get you. But and I think that brings up the idea of the agencies. Like the agencies are often people who are selected from amidst the people who ran against that person for presidency.
Right.
Like, Carson is the head of HUD, or is it Human Services, or one of the two? But people that ran actively against this person ended up getting agency appointments, and that's not uncommon. What I think has really come out in this impeachment inquiry that is something that I think a lot of people miss is both the finger pointing at deep state operatives and the interesting implication that carries for the conspiracy-minded folk that love that terminology, and then how the actual deep state operatives really function. These people who are so-called part of this deep bowels of the government infrastructure, the people who are testifying in front of Congress these last few days, these career people who have made their life knowing what our relationship with the Ukraine is going to be like. And they've fostered relationships over decades of time. And that strength and continuity to the way our State Department and our intelligence community and even our Justice Department in other ways operates gives a lot of capacity to our nation as a nation state. If we have this really rapid turnover of people who really aren't qualified, like the current president, who has not even put heads up for some of these agencies, has not filled half of his cabinet positions, I believe. Still, 3 years in, I like thinking of a future with leaders who are particularly not inept. So, like,
right. And
passing through the pageant run, maybe yes, but this populist style that is taking wave in certain parts of Europe too. They're electing these like fascist neo-right fools who have this populist wave behind them and throw big rallies. And it's weird, scary shit from the 30s. And it's like, but it's winning fucking elections all over this world. Like, I don't know.
I mean, like, but it's got to be hard
that.
to turn it down. It's got to be hard to turn that down in the moment. As a human, like, forget all the other nonsense. Like, in the body of the person
standing in that crowd,
who is standing in the, I am capable of accessing the fortune of this scandalous, broken system. I can be the Donald Trump in this moment, and it's just this generational moment where I know I can seize the opportunity. I can be the less than Donald Trump, the, ambassador to so and so or whatever. And this moment, this opportunity is just once in a lifetime. And if it doesn't just blow up in my face, it's a pot of fucking gold. Like, whatever the moment is for all of these people, like, that's got to be incredibly difficult to turn down when it's actually facing you, it's not, because it's not facing you and me, you know what I mean? It's not facing people who aren't looking for it.
True.
It's facing people who have been striving for that moment their whole life.
You have to try to trust some of the internal mechanisms to be able to catch corruption and things of that nature, right? And yeah, we have a kind of open corruption system in this country with the way the campaign finance laws, et cetera, work. Our representatives get tons of money thrown at them.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not necessarily catching corruption. It's just dealing with it, because we catch it. We catch it very easily.
We all see it.
Yeah. But like, there's these lifelong career folk like Yovanovitch. She'd been in the State Department for her whole career and had gotten this ambassadorship to Ukraine, and next thing you know, she's like completely dissed and destroyed and thrown under the bus by the Trump administration and fired for no reason other than she wouldn't roll along with the sham.
Yeah.
And I fear people who don't appreciate and acknowledge the depth of how the functionality of our government actually is. Like, have read the entirety of the Constitution, have participated in some sort of democratic assembly in their local municipality or something to some degree. Like, people need to have that sense of awareness of what government is, how it functions, unlike what this president has shown us.
Right. I definitely agree. I feel like there would be an automatic shift in that type of responsibility for people to get more involved and learn more about those things if there was some sort of like, and I want to get away from using the pageantry, because it's,
I like
now
it,
that the joke is really, because there is a part of it where I wonder if, so related to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, I wonder if multiple facets. I wonder if they weren't Democrat and Republican, how that would have changed the vote if they were just two state representatives. Say if Donald was the representative from Texas and Hillary was the representative from North Carolina. South Carolina, where is she from?
I don't know. They were in Arkansas for a while, but where is she from?
I think it's one of the Carolinas, but I automatically want to say she's from New York, but I think it's just because of the suits.
Well, she lives there, but
and if they were purely running off of that, and then their stances and their merits, and they got that far along, I wonder how the voting would have gone. Like little things like that. And those are the times where I think it would work in the favor.
She was born in Chicago.
Chicago. But I feel like those are the things where it would kind of work in the favor of what you're saying. And it would create, representatives that knew they had to prove, it wouldn't be I can just run off of Republican things and like say it well and get, that's why Donald won.
Yeah.
He like said all the right things and no one cared what his actual values were as long as he ran aligned with this system,
I mean, I kind of
and
feel
that's
like he showed he had no
like,
value, and they were like, all right with that. Like, he exposed like racism and sexism in himself to such a large degree that people are like, this guy's just like us in our hearts, like let's make him the boss.
Because people that didn't, there were people that didn't think that or didn't believe it or didn't want it, but he ran on their values. And so they're like, oh, I'll ignore the fact that he's all this person. And then there's the other end that like, just like, he called out all the fucking...
Exactly. He described...
he brought him out.
Such detail. Like, at some point, I won't say who it was, but at some point, very early on in the introduction of Trump's campaign, so it would have been early 2015.
Post descent from the golden staircase.
Yeah, exactly. Like shortly after that, I was speaking to someone from the South, and it wasn't really about politics necessarily. It was just kind of like loosely based off. I was working at the time for the Gregory brothers, so we were doing like, political spoof videos and stuff. And so it was kind of like the conversation we were having was probably about work and less about politics, but it just happened to be sort of loosely on the topic of politics. And this person brought up Trump, and they said, at this point, I was still in the mindset of like the way that Jon Stewart responded on the Daily Show when Trump hinted that he might run for president, and Jon Stewart was just like, "Oh God, please, yes, please run for president. Like it'll make my whole career. Like I'll win so many Emmys based on you running president. Let's do this." I kind of felt that way at the time about Trump's presidency, and I was talking this
liquid gold coming to you.
Yeah, I was like, this is about to be fucking beautiful. Like this dude is just a nonstop hit factory. Let's make this happen. And this person who I love dearly said, that Donald Trump person, he's brash, but he's making some really good points. And I just thought,
what?
Holy fucking shit.
Grab him by the pussy point? Like which point?
We are so doomed. Because I knew the points this person was talking about, and it was points about, those brown people shouldn't be trusted, and what if the news is lying to you, and hey, this shit is not what it seems, and it's all the like suspicious, vague, general kind of racist, not like a specific kind of on a mission.
He didn't say rapists and murderers this night on this occasion.
Oh, he froze.
It's not me and my four. Yeah. Well, I got you guys back now. Should I keep
No,
keep
you're
going?
great. Like you're so good now. Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. But like it's a much more vague kind of knee-jerk reaction, racism at that point, where it's like just everybody who is not me and my family.
Yeah. Well, it's that subtle. Are you frozen? I don't know if you stopped or if you're just frozen.
It's just glitchy on his side. I feel like we should just pretend like it doesn't happen when we say
that's the subtlety that I was starting to pick up early on, of like, because I grew up in the South, I grew up in the Midwest, I went to school in Missouri. I started picking up on those subtle things because that's the way people talked. And like in California, people just kind of was like, what? Like so shocked. And I'm like, no, I know exactly who he's talking to. I know for a fact that he's slowly winning them over. And the fact of it is that he won these people over early enough to where when all of his real BS started coming out, that's when you get, because that's the thing about Southern and Midwest people, and I'm speaking from experience, they are so forgiving when they want something from you, or if they think you're going to do something for them. It's like, oh, well, I'm sure there's always an excuse for something,
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. He like got that demographic. He got that he got the right people at the right time.
He spoke to the inner part of those people's hearts that hadn't had exposure on a national level for the last couple of decades, and like reminded us that a lot of this country still celebrates that racism at home, and like lives it fairly openly. And since then, just look at how many groups have been emboldened to march, Charlottesville and Portland and left and fucking right. You're hearing about another damn neo-Nazi march in which the cops are doing a great job of protecting the neo-Nazis from getting pelted by bricks from some Antifa dudes, and then arresting a bunch of Antifa dudes. One of the guys in Portland just got like 3 years or something like that. And anyways, like that shit's so rampant in this country. It's kind of nice to have it out though. Like maybe that's the one like good thing. Like I feel like we can. I'd rather maybe hide behind a veil of like awareness and modernity than think that we had such archaic view systems really abounding in our country. But it's nice to know that we do at least and have it out there. For me, because I come from this Northwest bubble, right? And there's this there's an extreme amount of progressivism in this part of the world, but a lot of falsity when it comes to our experience set in actually diverse communities, because the Northwest is particularly white, especially west of the mountains. And so it's like,
we were just talking about this before the call. Sorry,
really?
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, we
What's
were.
your point?
No, I just like the progressivism in this city has such an interesting way that it approaches and deals with race. Like we had the best candidate for mayor ever, like 2 years ago or whatever, in our last election, and she was a woman of color, and the city, like, there was movement behind her, a lot of popularity, and she didn't even get close. And she would have been brilliant compared to the corporatist, money mover that we did elect. But like we think we're super progressive, and then we still are caught in this scene where like our council members like literally get bought off by Amazon like every other year when they try to vote against them. So like and then I don't know, but the point being largely like progressivism needs to like really have an honesty to it, and we need to have great accountability with our elected officials, and we need to turn around after a vote that we know they got bought out and be able to chuck their asses out of office the next fucking day. Like the digital age should offer that access to a really involved
and eject
honest democracy
absolutely.
for the
real
bastards that suck.
Yeah.
I would vote for an eject button for the bastard that sucks.
And you just took $380 from Amazon to vote like against that head tax of theirs?
Yeah. I'm in.
Get out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Done. Take your $380 and walk.
What Jasper and I were talking about before the call was, so Jasper was raised, your family's in Memphis, and you were kind of mostly grew up in Fort Worth, right? Or
No. I was born and raised in Tennessee.
Okay.
Remember, because we were always talking about it.
Gotcha.
And then I moved to Missouri for school, and then moved to Texas, Fort Worth as a.
And so my
adult.
My childhood was back and forth between Louisiana and Texas mostly, with some kind of side trails to Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana and Tennessee. We were talking about racial slurs and racial epithets before, because Oh, what was? Oh, that was. I was telling you about using the word brother. I call everybody brother, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a. It's an affect of like I transitioned as a kid through cultures by moving around so much that at one point I distinctly remember going from one culture who used bra as
Mhm.
their reference to one other culture who used bro, and it was
Yeah.
like a week. I like it was like we just moved to a new
Yeah.
city and it was bra to bro, and I was like,
Bruh.
oh, okay, so now all these guys say bro instead of bra,
Yeah.
and like it was just that. So I kind of started saying brother. Like brother was like
It's the
it was a
universal, the
term in the
neutrons.
church,
Yeah, of course. But yeah,
you know.
I
Did I
no,
lose you
I
guys?
no, you did for a second, but we're with you
Just
now.
for a second. We're with you.
We get that it's a part of church.
Yeah, that's what we heard.
Oh, and then of course, oh god,
Of course. Just in
his
time.
Wi-Fi is just not holding up right now.
Oh, poor
Yeah.
connection.
Well,
Okay, now I'm getting poor connection
you back.
on, but I can see you guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now we're doing
Yeah, you
great. Yeah.
now. Yeah, you now.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so all I
you've
was
been
saying is
using
like
this term.
brother, yeah, as a term has never had any kind of racial implication to me,
Right.
right? Um, but I've kind of used it in various ways as bro, and brosif, and bra, and brother, and whatever all my life. And it's just now it's just totally force of habit that I just say, "What's up, brother? How's it going?" And it's meant to be like a term of affection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, except that in occasions when I find myself encountering a stranger who is a young African American man, and
Mm-hmm.
I call him brother, there are
Mm-hmm.
some times where
Yeah.
there's just a slight
Yeah.
moment where I'm not sure if that's okay, and it's
No.
usually after I've
Yeah.
said it.
It's not the best
Yeah.
term.
And it's not, yeah, exactly. It's not a slang as far as I can tell in any way, and it's completely force of
Yeah.
habit. But then that got me started on the conversation with Jasper before we started that I also grew up using the N word with all my friends in Louisiana
Mm-hmm.
because we were idiots and we all used it with each other. But I was saying to Jasper, I also called everyone around me who wasn't white a cracker because
Yeah.
I just thought it like flipped the whole thing on its head somehow. I just like, what's up, cracker?
So
With
you've been dealing
anybody
with
who,
this
like,
for a while.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I've been
I get
dealing with
that.
this
Yeah.
like conundrum of like, what is acceptable
Yeah.
to call each other? Because I don't
Well,
mean negative terms for any of it.
and it's weird, like as the resident black man, um, growing up in growing up in the two different areas that I grew up in, like where I grew up in Tennessee, um, I feel like the race thing took because it was so much in the DNA of everything. The outward racism kind of took a second seat to classism. And so if you were the right kind of white person in the right neighborhood and the right type of ghetto, then like you would have more authority to say nigga this, nigga that,
Yeah.
than, some light-skinned black guy who just moved here from California. And
Interesting.
so race there became more of a behavior and a culture.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas in other places it's different. Like if you go to Dallas, race is all skin, all you're like, it doesn't matter how much money you make, really. It doesn't matter what area you're in. Like it's kind of like it's more of the blatant, like, oh, if you don't like black people, if you don't like Mexicans, if you don't like this, you don't like that, there's like places for everything. Whereas in
Interesting.
Tennessee, it's just like I didn't act black enough, for the black people in Tennessee, and if
Okay.
I didn't get treated wrong by white people like my other Black friends, then I was looked down upon. Like I was, like Uncle Tommen, or I was talking white or doing this. And so if Meshack were to come down there and be like, blah, 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 they'd probably take the N-word from him before me, So it really, there's this weird,
No,
like,
they wouldn't.
thing.
But I
They
appreciate
wouldn't. You would not make it out, but they would. I could.
No,
Yeah, I'm glad
they
you
would
caught that
definitely
out,
not.
because
They
I was
would
like,
not
oh,
make
that's,
Incorrect.
I mean, I appreciate. I didn't mean to throw you off track, but there's no.
oh no, you're good. You're good. No, but yeah, it's weird how it shifts, because it's there, and that's why I would talk to people in California, because they're so out of touch with like racism in action. When I talk about like the underlying or systemic, racism that I've dealt with in my life. And it's never to be like, oh, like I've dealt with some racism. It's just like, no, there are still parts of the country where this is everyday life, everyday natural things. Like, like I wouldn't have dreads if I didn't live in California, because in the places that I've lived, Black people that look a certain way are a certain way. And I wouldn't get work if I had dreads. I probably wouldn't, like there's ways that people just perceive things, and then, and just go with that. And I feel like that's been a huge thing in this last election, where that's the other thing of the repercussions of Obama, besides the fact that we always flip from Republican to Democrat, like just whatever, we already have to fight that. If Obama had been a white president, then he would have been acclaimed for the things, he would have been more acclaimed for the things that he had done right. And then people would take it more personally, their disagreements with some of his other policies. Because he's a Black president, people had problems with him, like personally, and like, oh, like, so all the people that normally would have thought, oh, my president made a bad choice, it became like, oh, that Black president. And that's when Trump hit right on time, because all these people that were unhappy with their president had an extra reason to be unhappy, because he was a Black man, or he was brown, or like, he let all the immigrants in. We didn't even know if he was an American in the first place. And then Trump swoops in, and it's him against, Obama's best girlfriend, So it's like, and then people argue against that like type of racism that plays out. And it's like, no, it's there. Like it's there every day. It's there when people get the check before me. It's there when, like people ask me if I need help because I've been like lingering in a spot for too long, and it's just everywhere. And people forget that stuff, that people are out there dealing with that every day. And just because you are progressive doesn't mean that my life is,
Absolutely. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that, and maybe in particular, but I wanted to also like remind the context too that Trump's ascendance came from his birther push. Like he came out in the middle of in the early part of Obama's presidency and pushed that birther movement even way after it had been completely disproven. Yes, Obama was born in Hawaii, like like he's not born in Kenya. Like this is well established, and he was still out here on Fox pushing this shit and getting
it doesn't matter.
People who wanted to hate Obama right in that core of their juicy little racist selves. And then he came to the front of the platform and they were like, that's our guy. We're filling the fucking stadium for him. And those people never let go, regardless. He still has the same percentage of people, regardless of his fiasco.
Yeah. And they'll make excuses for him till the day they die, which hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, so I just want to point out that Vladimir Putin is 67 years old. How old do you have to be president of the United States?
35.
Vladimir Putin could have a son that was born in the United States that qualified to be president. Like,
he might.
You know what I mean? Like this arbitrary nonsense of like of like 7 fucking centuries ago of this rule that you have to be born on our land to be like the whole concept is so ridiculous. Like the thing that the birther movement is built around something that, like, I would love to see an honest poll of the United States citizens. Do you honestly really care if you know who this person is, where they were born? Do you really care?
I think
like,
you'd be disappointed.
If you know that, really?
Yeah. I think a heck of a lot of people are so
if you know who this person is, if you trust them and you know where they come from and etc., does it matter to you where they're born?
I think
you're talking about isolated for presidency?
Yeah.
I think it
yeah, no one would care. No one would care.
Really?
See, if it's not for presidency?
No,
if it's just general, you're just asking.
No, if for president.
No, everyone would care.
For president. What I'm saying. Really?
65-70% of people would care.
I think the majority of people would be like, he wasn't born on American soil.
Yeah.
How many people are still mad that Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California? There are people that are still mad about that.
And he was a Republican too. So fuck.
Like, there's no way Obama was American and everyone hated him because his name sounded like he wasn't. So I don't know. I don't think that one.
I'm not a father, but if I ever became a father to any child, I would hope that I would leave them at least one piece of knowledge, and that is that all lines are arbitrary. Yeah. All of them. Every fucking one of them. Every one that anybody draws, they're only drawing it from their perspective. Like these concepts of like what is white, what is American, what is Christian, what is Republican. but these are arbitrary lines by definition.
They are.
Someone just picked a thing to fight over.
But they are. But you have to also choose which ones to respect, because there's some people's lines who we should offer ourselves enough sense of awareness at this age, living in metropolises in America, to be able to interact with each other with care and like good, appropriate manners, regardless of what our backgrounds, ethnicities, political, maybe not political ideologies. Now maybe if you got your Trump sign up, I might fucking knock that down. But like that we.
But aren't those still arbitrary? Like no, that doesn't mean they can't be respected. Yeah. But it does mean like that you should take them all with a grain of salt. Like none of them are sacred. Like
yes,
like today we're having a conversation.
They can be to the other person, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. I get you.
It can be to the other person. So like calling a person of Hispanic descent of who knows which national origin a Mexican, or like saying it regardless of the context of what you're addressing or how you're addressing it. Being as most acute and aware of your environment and surroundings at all times. And I think, in my opinion, white people need to really start holding white people accountable for that shit in that community. I
agree.
No, I think we do a poor job of it in a lot of ways, especially on intergenerational level. I excuse mildly racist and even flagrantly racist jokes, or I have far too often in the past, coming from an older generation.
Now, this is not to suggest that we aren't guilty of far more than other races, but doesn't every race excuse minor racism? Like, am I incorrect that every race has some kind of minor racism?
Like a discussion. So now we're talking about what kind of trauma these lines come from. So like you basically, that's where you have to like draw the line of respecting, is that there's some races, there's some cultures, there's some people that have very specific traumas, whether they're just generational, whether they're like specific, where you just automatically respect those traumas. You might respect, the military, but you tell like war jokes and it's not a big deal unless there's an injured veteran. And then you should know to keep your mouth shut, because that dude has traumas. You don't make rape jokes around rape victims. You shouldn't make rape jokes anyway.
No, that's
But if you do just off the hand make one and someone says, oh, please, like, I don't want to hear that I have had a trauma in my life. And then you say, well, I've never raped someone. You shouldn't be offended by me.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it needs to be seen. It's like, okay, I as a white person, I have the luxury of being able to say, oh, like I'm progressive, or I, even if it's coming from the best place, it's still a luxury to be able to get to
Absolutely.
that step, because I don't have no matter how progressive I am, I'm still living in the present no matter what. And so I don't get to like live in the new world or my ideal world, because I can ideally go out there and strut my ass on the street and get shot, you know?
Sure.
So like, and that's the extreme, like whatever, but it's real, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a reality for me. And I'm always having to be aware. And so like when people make off the cuff, like racist jokes, to me, I don't just hear that person, I hear every single thing that I've been raised with, and it
Right.
becomes a trauma. It's a danger to me. It's not about me getting respect.
Yeah.
It's about me having a fear of reverting back to a time where I could be hung just for being me, not just like presenting myself right, but actually just my existence. And so that's where it has to start. It's like, okay, if I make this joke, like how, you know, what kind of doors does this open? What kind of trauma does this open? And so, yeah, it's all arbitrary. These lines are all BS, but only some of these lines have been had wars fought over. Only some of them have had like, you know, entire cities burned down over. Only some of these arbitrary things have actually completely divided and changed our culture. And those are the ones that need to be respected and revered no matter what state we're in now. Because as we know, it never goes away. It's just like sitting dormant, waiting on the right person to say the right thing, to where everything just loses
Yeah.
its shit, you know?
And I think a lot of that exists behind closed doors in this country, in enclaves of whiteness in particular. And like coming from an enclave of whiteness here in the Northwest, in a lot of ways, like it's so white, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Portland is the whitest city in the US, and we're second, I think, or something like that. And so, but like one of the reasons that I brought this up is, or mentioned it like jokes, is because I have a person who's become a friend over the last few years from Tennessee, as a matter of fact, an older person, and he's been hanging out with me at my property, a neighbor
Mm-hmm.
there, and has had, over the course of a few years of knowing him, on occasion said shit that was off in both
Yeah.
terms of sex, gender, as well as race.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was nice to have company, especially when I'm like out there on my own. But eventually it was like, I need to like cry. I need to say something. I have to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to say something to this guy. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of figuring out, and I've spent hours in my head trying to like, look, man, I appreciate you. I know we come from different, you know, and he's a Democrat. Like he
Mm-hmm.
left Tennessee to move to Washington because all of his neighbors were super, you know, racist and
Mm-hmm.
conservative, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in a place where he's sitting with another white person, he'll make
Mm-hmm.
these sets of jokes, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's just not but I didn't have the way to say it to him, so I just stopped hanging out with the guy. And then I seen him on the road the
I
other day, and he's like, "Man, like, what's up? We used to have beers. Like, it's been like
I
a
do have
year and a half."
So
advice.
you were racist.
I
I
know.
have advice to all the white people out there that don't know how to correct their slightly
Yeah.
racist friend.
Yes.
Correct them as casually and easily as they say their racist shit.
Yeah.
So, like, what did he say? What, like, give me an example of something that he would say.
Well, like he called his wife a heifer in front of me, in front of her.
Oh, so
He referred to
I've
her
been
as
in
a
that
heifer.
situation where I'm like, heifer, like a cow?
Yeah.
Like, just like make it so ridiculous that you're not calling them out. You're just like, what, like a cow? And then, yeah, you call your wife a cow in front of people? Wow, dude. And then just leave it at that. Want a beer? Just make the dude look like an idiot. Don't make yourself better. Like, hey,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. Just be like, wow, dude, you're calling women cows nowadays? Good job. and just move on. Like, because I feel like the people that say those things will not feel like they're wrong. And so confronting the thing that was wrong is like, but they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to feel stupid. They want someone to relate to them about this like pig-headed shit. And so if you're just like, oh no, dude, not me, but I'll still drink with you, then it ends it. And then the more people that do that, the more they'll realize, yeah.
That's the thing.
Well, that's what I said. Do it as casually and do it as casually.
My thing is like I face that, and I just like I have the like odd like look on my face, like pained. I don't know, and then I just take a sip of my beer, and I like don't know what to say. So
yeah,
he doesn't get a laugh or response out of his thing, but then like you'll hear it again in a month. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But being in the moment with it is always been the thing that I lack the most.
Yeah. I think actually from this podcast, I'm learning this a little bit more, but is to yes and then in the middle of that, figure out how far I want to go with this yes and. Is it real? Is it sarcastic? Is it whatever? But just to always yes and like decide from there if I'm being sarcastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's being like super sexist, right? Like, talking shit about the waitress or whatever, and I yes and it in the most like sarcastic, weird, obnoxious way,
I think you run a risk.
Yeah, of course. Like, I'm not trying to like one up anybody, but I give myself the opportunity to kind of frame what they just said in a way that's like sort of comical, and it gives them a way to back down from it, but it also gives me a way to make fun of it because I've now kind of taken it on for myself, Like, I don't mean like somebody says the N-word and now I start calling them the N-word. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
I know what you mean.
But it's more just like, somebody makes a comment about, wow, that waitress is a heifer, right?
Yeah.
And I can be like, yeah, we can make a joke about that because neither of us have weight problems. Or like I can kind of express this, just to, like invite this like this reflection. I'm not trying to judge you, but like let's stay in the moment of like extending that thought into its logical.
I'm trying to say like there's something to try to like learn. Be like, hey, I'm a white male like you speaking to another white male about the joke you just told me that I felt was inappropriate. Like, I share the exact same badges of privilege that you do walking around in this world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't appreciate the way that you're speaking about things, and I don't think making a joke about that shit is appropriate at all. I don't want you to say that sort of thing around me ever again. And I frankly think that if you think it's okay, we should talk about white privilege and racism in this country and be frank with each other about how we feel about it. And like, cause like, I'm not trying to like out everybody, but I think you should know who your fucking friends are and how they feel about that sort of shit, first of all. And I think that like being, confrontational in that moment around something that maybe deserves confrontation. Otherwise, like the passable way to deal with it just slides off. They're not going to pick up on joking around it. Like, think about that tomorrow. They're going to think about the fact that you stopped them in their joke and had a serious conversation about what they were trying to get from.
To be fair, I have the same reaction to your friends who are not white who make comments that are racist toward white people. Do you have the same kind of reaction? Right? Do you have the same kind of reaction when you're a group of black friends who make a comment that is equally racist against white people?
Well, equally racist is a weird way to put it.
Which is not fair.
Right. Fair. Well, like it's a wrong term.
It kind of is. It's a fair way to put it. But the thing is, it's like that goes back to the traumas of racism. It's like, it's still the same racism, but you don't have the risk or the danger of reverting back to that. You don't have the generational traumas of slavery, or historical traumas. You don't have the cultural subjugation. Like, you don't have the the lack of generational wealth. You don't have like all of these things that go into being the minority. You can't make a casual joke of, because as the minority, it encompasses everything. It's not just about being Black or being that joke. It's about it's you are reminding me that I'm that person that can be joked about or casually dismissed or blah blah, because it's everyday life. Whereas for you guys, it's like, oh, haha, Whitey over there. And you're like, haha, I feel offended that I'm Whitey. And then you like go about your white business. You know what I mean? And so
I think the
that's
common
what I'm talking
denominator,
about,
though,
where the traumas
Fair.
are regarding racism.
but I think the common denominator, though, is relationship. Like, just to call out one thing very, very quickly, because we've kind of called it out about talking about our past, in that our close friends, we've had interactions with our close friends that can sometimes be the exception to the rule, right? And I was just thinking about, like, there was a situation where I could think of either one of you two guys on this call. I'm close enough to either one of you that if Jasper, you said something in the heat of the moment, in whatever kind of topic that included all white people, that was racist against white people, I'm comfortable in our relationship with you that I could just tell you without getting on any kind of soapbox, hey, that was a racist fucking thing to say against white people, right? And Bjorn, I'm close enough with you that if you, in the heat of the moment, said something that felt racist to me against Black people or against any other culture, I could feel, because of our relationship, to be very direct. What we're talking about is in the absence of that relationship, in the absence of that trust and that connection, how do you cut to that kind of a chase? You know what I mean?
I think regardless of that
bridges
trust and connection,
race lines,
being as self-aware and conscious of your word choices and your navigation of this world is key.
Sure.
And in that regard, like, I would also like to say, like, the tangent that brought us here to the point of discussing race, not only seems appropriate because we are two white guys and a Black guy in this room talking, and like we have talked about race at a few other points in this series,
mostly because it's usually three white dudes talking about how it's three white dudes.
I want to first of all say that the tangent that took us here, if it is a spark for, like, you know, like, I had never thought and even considered, and this is a place of privilege that you pointed out really well just earlier, that even discussing race and all that lives around it can be a trigger point or a point of, like, entering into trauma and feeling of that way. And that's such a fucking another deep ass reminder of how unaware we really are about each other. You know what I mean? And like that, like, man, like, I'm sorry if getting there and going here and having this discussion is heavy in a way that, you know, is not working, and like we can do some other shit or, you know, whatever. Like, I don't want this to be burdensome in any way.
No, I think if you're going to discuss race, this is the perfect time to do it, right? I'm not going to be burdened by anything, and I think, if I don't know what you guys' listener base is, but I feel like if, like, you guys are all white guys,
the answer is
you guys are all white guys who talk about race often, so it would be valuable to have a Black voice, you know. And if that's the thing, if people find themselves in these discussions where it should happen and it gets uncomfortable and we back out of it out of fear of offense or fear of anything, then what happens? Like, you end up with just white guys talking about race issues
Yeah.
because they don't want to offend people of color by talking about race issues.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get black people that are like, no one wants to talk to me about race, and then when people finally do, they get angry and they're like, why are you talking to me about this? And they're like, who are we gonna talk to? And that's the thing, like the discussions have to happen and they have to be burdensome and they have to be offensive because it's like that's how real actual progression changes things. And like you're always going to be in an idealistic space until you know the realities of being a minority. You can respect women all you want, but you're not empathetically a woman just because you can see through their eyes. You know, that's compassion and that's respect and that's love, but you can't explain or negate like that experience. You know, it's the same as being a black man. Like it crosses a lot of things, and there's black men that are completely different than me because they were black men in Dallas and I was a black man in, you know, Tennessee. Or my best friend Donzel, we have a lot of disagreements because he grew up in the Carolinas, and he's like, oh, this is the way, and blah blah blah, and we talk about that stuff. And so the discussion is great, it's not burdensome, and the fact of the matter is, it's like um, we have to talk about the intricacies of these things if we're going to stop like broadening it and make it a us and them thing, because it's not about like the race issues as much now. It's becoming people having all these personal prejudices that they're finding community with. And so it's like these little micro prejudices and these little like microaggressions, you know, that are just lingering. You never find those things out unless you like talk about it, and you never find out who's serious about it unless you like dismiss them and they say it again. And that's what my advice to you was, like, if someone says that and you're not close to them and it's not a situation where you can have that serious conversation, then my advice would be to like immediately dismiss it, not ignore it, like verbally be like, that's ridiculous, and then move on. And then allow them to be the person that's like, wait, why? Because that'll show you that they are mature and open enough to hear your viewpoint. Because otherwise you're just going to start an argument that's going to make people say you're fine, you're whatever, you're just like offended and blah blah blah, you know. And so it's like, oh wait, well, you asked why I didn't want to hear that, so I'm telling you. I didn't immediately say, hey, don't say those things. It's just like, really, dude, you're still saying that shit? And then move on and do something else and show them that's ridiculous. It doesn't deserve my time, because why would you even say that? Let's move on. And then they'll be like, what? And then be like, oh, well, you know, I just personally don't like when women are called heifers, you know? Oh, sorry. And then I'll retract and let you guys talk. I just did that to a fellow black man that he just moved here from Atlanta. And we were hanging out, and it was me, him, and then 3 white people. One of them was a girl. And he's telling this story, and he's like, oh yeah, and this, and he's like, oh, and my bitch is this, and my bitch is that. And I was like, do people still call women bitches in Atlanta? That's literally what I said. And he goes, what do you think? I was like, dude, you can't go around calling people bitches in LA. It's not going to fly. I was like, these girls are going to eat you alive, you know? And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, it's so disrespectful. And he was like, oh, okay. And that was it, you know? And it was done. And then later he said, oh, and then this bitch. And then he goes, my bad, chick. And then it became this comical thing of like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. You just like, and I made it cultural for him. I'm like, do people do that in Atlanta? You know, instead of being like wrong, it's like, is that still like a slang? Because that's not going to fly here, you know, and then use that to go into like how like women here think that's disrespectful, instead of saying you're a disrespectful person, you know. And I feel, and that's me talking to my culture and my person. Right. And I was willing to be offended. I was willing to be offensive, but also not gonna just like let him, especially with the girl there, you know. And she didn't say anything. Her boyfriend didn't say anything, you know. So everyone gets caught in those situations
but
where
you
they're like,
also you took a position where you were incapable of being offended personally by what you're saying.
It wasn't an attack,
you took
or
the position, exactly, like,
yeah.
Right. Your tone was that what you just said has nothing to do with me and my feelings. I just want you to know how you might want to fit in here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. White people don't have to speak for black people when correcting white people.
Yeah,
And that's the
exactly.
thing. I think it's like, how do I say this like,
Right.
as a representative? And it's like, don't say
No.
it as a
No.
representative.
Yeah.
Just
No.
say it. What if
Like.
they had said anything else? If they had offended you on anything else, say it the way you would have done it if they had kicked your dog. Dude, don't kick my
Yeah.
dog. What the fuck?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
simple
You
as
think
that.
the world is flat? You think all Asian
What?
people what?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Why is that
like
now?
they're equally
Yeah.
stupid. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
I like it.
and I
Over.
love
I like it.
I love the idea. No, I love the idea too of like also just approaching with some sense of um, um, like empathy is maybe not the right word, but like some sense of like just unity, like we're the same,
Yeah.
we're dealing with the same issue here. Like all
Yeah.
of us are dealing with the same issue. You're looking through two eyes at the universe through your skin and figuring it all out. And like if you can't address that with anybody in any situation, honestly, that I have all the same problems as you do trying to
Hmm.
sort out categories.
Yeah.
Like let's
You
be
know.
honest about our experiences and then also be non-judgmental and be really clear and open and
Yeah.
quick with, hey dog, that's racist, that's not cool,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
really
Hey,
quick
let's
with it,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like that approach. I will attempt to try to put some of that into action. I like that.
Good. And that's
I feel
I'm
like
like it's so I do really really feel for like my white friends lately, just because I'm like it's so tough. I know it's so tough.
It ain't tough. What are you talking about? Shit.
I know I'm so sorry. Sorry guys.
Shit. No, whatever.
but
Whatever
the
with
thing is,
that.
like, you know
Whatever.
what, like, Jasper, you'll be able to definitely appreciate this, but um if two white dudes in the South are hanging out, just the two of them, and one of them says some really gay shit,
Hmm.
right? And not as a joke, but like some profoundly like intense kind of reference to
Yeah.
homosexuality. The
Yeah.
other dude does not have any hesitation about calling that
Oh
out.
no, that shit don't fly. No.
It's instant,
No. Yeah.
right? It's whoa, that's not me. You can't
Yeah.
say that shit around
Mm-mm.
me.
Oh
I'm
no.
not gay,
Oh
right?
no, bro. No, it's
Right?
quick.
So there is a nomenclature around the culture that does subdivide, even within young white males. That there is a category where young white males are very willing to draw very clear
Hmm.
lines, and they're not worried about what other
Yeah.
social implications there are. No, fuck you. That's not me. I don't care what you think about me
Right.
now. You shouldn't have said that around me.
Hmm.
But when it
Hmm.
comes to race, it's somehow much more delicate, right? It's
Yeah.
somehow like, oh, my buddy said some racial shit. I don't know if I should say anything.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
this weird, not everywhere, but I just mean to call it out that like with sexuality and with race, there are these kind of two different paths that are especially in the South
I do have a
that
theory
like
on
they
that.
just take very different approaches. And in Jasper, I'm sure you do.
I think that is a primal thing. I think it's harder to disagree with someone you look like than it is to disagree with someone that acts or might behave differently than you. So it would be harder to disagree with a white person who is talking about someone of a different race or a different gender, because primally you don't have culture with that person. You don't have like innate bond with that person that's primal. It's physical, it's visual. And so there's an automatic us and them that you have to fight against before you can correct. Whereas if you're two white people and one of you is gay and the other one isn't, then in your head, that's kind of a choice a little bit. It's like, oh, you can do that, but that's not me. Whereas if it's a race thing, it's like, oh, am I like, there's this almost unconscious thing of like, oh, well, they think I'm black if I disagree. And that
Mm-hmm.
sounds ridiculous, but it's almost that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing where it's like you hesitate because you don't want to talk against your own people about someone that's different, even though your whole soul is saying like we're not different at all. there's like a primal instinct of like, oh, my people, like my people, kind of. And I think it goes into Black cultures too. I think it goes into any like culture combined where visually we automatically connect and we go off of those things. I think that's my theory.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
no,
even,
I feel
even
like there's a degree of
subculture
it.
stylings, like in America, like identification with a certain type of music genre, and like wearing a clothing style that signals to other people, this is my style. I'm into that. It's very different, but you're doing this outward tribal attempt to signal to others who you have this sort of share with. And we're always looking for like communities of inclusiveness that depend on having some exclusivity. Like there has to be a definition of who's in and who's out.
And it's
otherwise
I feel like
there's no
it's
value
extra hard
to
for white
in the
people.
group.
I feel like it's extra hard for white people because you guys don't have a skin tribe. Like Black people, no matter what our different cultures are, like women, like even though you are the minority now, like there's this thing about being a minority of where, oh, like we stick together, you know, and then we have the authority to like break it down even more into our subcultures because we have a blanket of tribe. Whereas I feel like it's like white people are just now starting to like really kind of like tribalize being white because of the race stuff that's happening. And I think that plays into a lot of it too, where it's like, oh, I'm not racist, but like all the Black people are against the whites right now. So I got to stick with, you know, I got to just like keep my mouth shut and keep my head down.
Well, I just two thoughts about that. One thing, it's nice to finally hear someone acknowledge the plight of the white man.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, I mean, I marched in the White Pride parade. I was white adjacent.
The white man parade.
Secondly, how do we celebrate that? Do we just like have a white
it's
day?
Every day.
Or we just
bro.
like we hand
every
out
day.
mayonnaise sandwiches to all the way.
The best way to celebrate White Day is to wake up and you know, exist as we do every day. That is White Day.
Exactly. That's White Day.
I was recently talking to my friend, and he was like, he said something about when he was growing up, and he was like, oh yeah, back in the good old days. And I was like, yeah, the privilege of white people having good old days in the past. I was like, there's no day in my past that is better than my present because of
like,
as a Black man.
Good old days, yeah.
It's like, yeah, let's make America great again.
Indubitably, Jesus.
I do feel like though there's a part of like a thread of still an other people kind of vibe for racism that seems to always be attached. Like
but like
real racism is always somebody else's version.
The functionality of how privilege works, though, like, is still so underaddressed, I think, in a lot of America's white community. And, like, sharing even just, like, the Peggy McIntosh article, like I did with you, like, a year or so ago. That shit's... I don't know, like, most people won't want to read it. And most people won't, even if they do read it, glean everything out of it. But if they do... even though it's written by a white person, it conveys this idea of a tickle of the fact that we're quite freaking privileged for all of these crazy ways. And if you let some of that sink on you, like, you can, I don't know, like, trying to become more and more and more and more aware of the way that white privilege works. Like, I feel like I had an option or a moment this evening based on what you said earlier, Jasper. There was like, oh, yes, like that's I don't know, the strong awareness. Like I've still been sitting here like thinking about the way that works, the idea of entering trauma through, you know, and through things like discourse on it, etc. So like, it's but
I mean, I don't mean this to be
but I do think it's like a little bit honest, and I never want to be somebody who's going to speak to other white people as speaking on behalf of black people, or
Right.
or people of any background or orientation. Like you should know this on behalf of these people. I just think like plug into a little more 2020 awareness and know where your privilege sits, know where making that aside doesn't work at all anymore, and know that like be a little uncomfortable with going through the process of learning how that feels when you change your mindset on that, because it is a little uncomfortable. Like come down off the righteousness pinch and just address some of where this all really does work. You might be broke as fuck, because you still carry hella privilege.
Yeah, because that's where you step into like the white savior complex of most people don't realize. I don't want to be treated like your latest project. Like I don't want you advocating to me as if I'm like a hungry Ethiopian. I don't want you advocating for me the way you do veganism. Like I don't want you speaking for me like you just like, found out about climate change and you have to tell everyone about it. It's like defend me or any of your minority friends as if it was yourself or your brother, or like any people forget that it's human. It's not like, oh, black, that's where I'm like, Black Lives Matter, the movement is very valuable. But like in the people that, you have to almost present it like that in the correction of like, hey, it's not like you shouldn't talk to black people like that. It's like, why would you say that to someone? Like, it's not about you're saying this wrong because that's a black person. Don't talk to women. You still call people bitches in Atlanta.
Right.
It's not about like, I'm not a project for you to like get people's signature to like win over to the white people for the black rights.
Right.
It's like, no, like on the public forum, the political forum, yes, advocate like that because that's how progress is made. But to your friends, just like don't treat it like you want like a puppy adopted. It's just like, don't fucking talk to my family like that. Like don't call that girl a heifer because you wouldn't call a woman a heifer. Like you would, and I think that's where the connection has to bridge. And that's where we have to fight against that us and them mentality or the other. It's hard to empathetically put yourself in someone's shoes when you have never lived like them, and it's vice versa. I've never lived in a bubble that was all my race. And so I don't know what it's like to break out of that mental block of only being surrounded by my culture, my people at all times and at all points. And so I have the privilege of offering that compassion to white people that like are scared of looking like a racist. And I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. You grew up in Minnesota in like a small town. I get it. There were no black people. I don't think you're racist. I just think you need to learn how to say things, and it's as simple as that, and I feel like that's how it needs to be. That's how the conversation needs to shift. It needs to be like, you don't talk to people that way.
Right. Exactly.
That's not how we deal with things. It's not respectful, and it's definitely not show good character. Why would you talk to someone that degrading? It doesn't matter that they're black. You wouldn't talk to anyone like that, And so I think that's where it has to be erased, because then you get the other end where people are like, oh, black people just think they're so special and they get all these rights. And I'm like, yeah, all the same rights.
Right, exactly. The exact same ones you have.
Yeah. So
I love that
right now,
that sentiment, especially Jasper, that like the bottom line is, if you don't treat your friends this way, then don't treat other people this way. And if you don't have friends who don't look like you, then you have to re-examine your life and think about like, oh, the friends you have. It's clearly something's wrong.
Yeah. You don't go to like, Italy and then, make fun of the Italians for speaking their language, just because you didn't grow up in Italy. So it's like, oh, if you weren't around Black people, then growing up, then when you're around Black people, how about you just actually just like listen and observe,
Right.
and
Yes.
try to like see how the interactions happen. Or how about you just act normally?
Like, oh, yeah, right.
And just like let that speak for itself, It's
Yeah.
like
Or
it
also,
doesn't.
and when you're thinking about whether something someone else says is racist, take the race out of it and think, do you
Yeah,
want that thing said about your friend, your
yeah,
family? Like, who cares about the racial implications of it? Is it
yeah,
is it a nice thing to say about another fucking
yeah.
human
She's like,
being?
ooh, that made me uncomfortable.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so
It's not that hard to decipher. But I do
people
think,
with sheep.
where it gets tricky for that, something that Rob and Bjorn and I have talked about a lot on this cast, being white men. As Jasper leaves the cast, he's not going to be able to answer any of this now.
Oh.
Can you still hear me?
Me?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Just making sure.
I'm shifting phones because my phone's about to die on my computer. Keep talking. Keep going. You're good.
It's also walking the line of perception about race, right? And we're running on the end of our time here, so we got to wrap up soon. But like, there's just sometimes where you perceive or other people perceive you to say or mean something that is intended, or that sounds like it's intended to be racist but isn't.
Yeah.
Or that you hear something around you that you're like, I don't know what that meant, but I didn't like it. It didn't feel right. And it's like also just feeling like that you have some kind of gauge for that dividing line. Like as you like navigate these conversations about things like privilege and about I guess I don't know what you would call it, but sort of the pendulum swinging, right? The fact that like I don't remember what you called it, Jasper. The trauma of each race, right? That you have to factor in that to a certain degree. In our culture and in various cultures, other races, but in our culture, the African American race has experienced a shitload of trauma for being a part of our country, and that trauma is a real part of the history and a real part of the experience. And to that extent, the sort of racial scales are never on balance. They're never
right.
They're never fair. That's not the factor. The factor is that the goal is not to be perfectly fair and balanced.
Right.
It's to reconcile somehow.
Yeah.
The fact that it's imbalance.
Yeah, I guess that's where my desire to speak with people, particularly of like the current like group of our immediate elders, our parents' generation, about that racism or about the way that just the institution functions with this weight of it without even really realizing it as it moves around, especially for white America. They just don't see that functionality and how life in this country is if you're not a white American. Like it's just it's the impossibility of so many of anybody who doesn't have that experience to really know it. And my desire, I guess, in having a conversation about race with people who are white and who, I feel like deserve to have a better set of information about how they navigate the world now, is certainly me being on a little bit of a personal pedestal, thinking I have a right to do that anyways. But also, and it's nice to be really reminded about like your opinion about not wanting to be like spoken for, like yeah, that's not like a desire that I have, but I
Yeah.
do think it's important for white people to know their privilege, and not to say that
Yeah.
we don't have rights that aren't the same, and that the
Hmm.
things that are locking up black men in this country aren't not a particular set of laws. They're
Hmm.
institutional racism on behalf of police forces and the way that the prison industrial system works. And
So my question is, how often are those types of things or those type of comments coming up in your normal conversations to where it's already weeding out? So like, how often do you talk about these things as a correction or as just normal, like conversation?
I very rarely have the feeling that I need to like offer a correction to somebody. Like
Okay,
most
okay.
people that I interact with, like speak about and relate to those factors of our society in, I think, pretty appropriate terms.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember where you're from, and you're talking about a
yeah,
specific guy that moved there.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah, never mind.
No, no. Most people
Never
I
mind.
interact with are more worldly than that.
Yeah,
But nonetheless, I think it's nice to like find ways to try to navigate that at least. And then that was the whole
okay.
reason I broached this topic, was because
Yeah,
I think it's weighty on so many levels. Like your
yeah.
contribution to it was brilliant, and I thank you for that. And like I there's like several things you said that I'm gonna carry with me, um, and
That's
I
cool.
love that. Like so, like, but I I guess I want us to fucking be in actual 2020. The 2020
Yeah,
that I was thinking we were gonna be in when I was a
mhm,
teenager and a kid. Like that's
Right.
this parade was not part of it.
yeah,
And America's racism reawakening now was not part of what I figured we'd be dealing with. And so
yeah,
like that's why I'm feeling this way about it, I guess.
yeah. And I mean, that's great, and I love it, and that's good, and that's it. I mean, I was never as big of a women's advocate as I have been this year, and I'm like, I feel like that is a positive of the past couple of years, is
Yeah.
that the people that were aware and waiting to change and grow and become better have taken those steps. And I feel like it's even highlighted more the people that haven't. It was so easy for me to say that I was a feminist or whatever, but then it was harder for me to be like, oh, well, how many women's butts have I grabbed as a gay man? And I took that liberty as a gay man because I was forgetting I'm still a man and I don't know these women's traumas with men. I don't know their traumas with this. And just because I'm gay and not attracted to them doesn't mean that I have a right to their space or their bodies. And I often like use that to put myself in other people's shoes about race and about other things. It's like, oh, sometimes people just aren't aware until they have that moment of
Uh,
awareness. And it's like, oh, I'm a man too, and I sexually harass women too. Holy shit. And I feel like that's been good about this time where there's people like you that are not, I don't get racist vibe, like people that are not racist, that have never had any ill intention or wanted to segregate or never wanted to see these divisions. But there's a wake up of like, oh, these certain behaviors or these words or these things are adding to the problem and causing more trauma. And that's the wake up call that needs to happen locally and relationally and intermixed, so that it can like keep building from there. Because I do feel like the localized awareness is becoming more potent, like becoming more valuable. Whereas in the past, I feel like government was pushing progression before locals were ready for it. And so people were just kind of sitting like in wait. And now I feel like communities are starting to see the ridiculousness in a lot of things and it's starting local again. Whereas the big government is like, oh, random AF, Um,
yeah, that's
and
fair.
I don't know if I feel like I feel like, And so I feel like there is a silver lining, in my opinion, where I'm seeing more people actually care to invest in, like asking questions and being wrong or being, mistaken or whatever. And so that's valuable. That is a silver lining. I like to always talk about, positive, like the positive in it, because, it's two-sided.
Well, optimism is the only. Otherwise, you go to nihilism, and then what the fuck is the point, right?
Oh yeah, right. I've been in and out of that all morning.
There should be a T-shirt on Ugly American. We need a new T-shirt for Ugly American for when we talk to Rob. The slogan is, "You don't have to stay racist."
I love that. That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Like, just because you find out that you're racist doesn't mean you have to stay there.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I love it. So good.
Make it as a little blue hat.
Yeah.
They need to remake
because
American History X.
I feel like that's a
it's
problem kind of fundamentally with that conversation. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's kind of a fundamental problem with that conversation is so identity driven, and it's you are a racist or you are racist. And that was racist is I think just far more appropriate because and you don't have to stay racist if you are one is an equally appropriate.
No, okay, that was racist of you to vote for Donald Trump.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're a racist. But that move supported
was racist
a racist
of you.
agenda. Yeah, that was a racist.
You supported a race?
Right.
I don't know. I can't help but wanting to call him racist. It just I love simplicity.
Well, that's why you don't have to stay racist.
I mean, in those situations, I kind of go with the simple too. In those situations.
Yeah, that's why.
Guilty by enough association, man. Come on. I hate to say it. Sorry. I know Meshach likes to find the nuance in the Trump camp.
Well, no, I think you're guilty by association when you defend the associate. Like when you defend it. I'm like, you're not guilty until it's called out and you're like, well, it's not that bad, is it? I'm like, okay, now you're racist.
Right, exactly. He's right. Those brown people are dangerous. They are very dangerous. I think we solved it. We took an extra hour to solve it, but I think we solved the problems of the world for this
Thanks
week.
for your patience, Flawed Nations.
Yeah.
That was a great chat. I would be down to do that whenever you have moments, Jasper, on Wednesdays you'd like to share.
I would love to.
All right.
I want to talk about consciousness and what happens after you die. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
No, I like
outside of race.
I like that. Yeah.
You're born on a race. You're reborn on a racist planet somewhere far, far away.
Someone told me today. I asked someone, "What happens after you die?" And she goes, "Well, it depends on if you learned all your lessons."
Like, well, shit. Like, okay. No one. Yeah. Well, what happens to the rest of us?
I left it at that. I didn't ask anymore. I don't know why. I just didn't feel like I needed to.
Yeah, I don't even know what lessons I need to start with. So how do I even get
so
going
certainly not all of them.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, sweet. All right, sorry guys.
Well, I'm glad we learned all our lessons.
I very, very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was great.
Thanks to our sponsors, Alpacas.
Alpacas for everybody.
Nature's
prancing through the Alpine.
Yeah.
What was it about them being limber?
Limber herbivores of the Alpine. Those are our friends from Alpaca.
Yeah. Thanks, Alpacs.
Everybody's
Appreciate
buddy.
you.
Thanks, Alpacs.
Take care, you guys. All the best.
Yeah.
Peace.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.